Ben just had a motor that I could not slow down. And it's funny because going in from that to now with business, it's the same way. It's like he has a motor that I've just come to accept is not going to slow down, and it's cool. I either get with it or I'm getting left behind.
Welcome back, investor, to another episode of the Passive Income Adventures. I have a great story for you today. Two guys just recently out of college hustling at summer sales door to door so that they can have enough extra money to start investing in real estate. Both of them graduated from college with great degrees and have chosen not to use those degrees to go down to an entrepreneurial path so that they can get ahead in life a little bit faster, and so they can start giving back to their community and just providing all of the philanthropy and the lifestyle that they have dreamed of. And I have some kids the same age as these guys, and I'll tell you, it's a very different story when you're talking to people who are very worried about politics and wage stagnation and inflation and not being able to make it without some sort of second stream of income or passive income, and they just don't know how to do it because what they're making, even with their college degree jobs, is just not going to get them past just a basic, comfortable lifestyle. And they just have huge aspirations to have more time to go on passive income adventures and be able to give back in a huge way. So Ben Bollingbroke and Jordan Jaramillo are here to talk more about their journey, how they got started so early, already learning from the mistakes that they've made and passing down the wisdom to the people who are a few steps behind them. It doesn't matter if you are young or old. This story will inspire you with its attitude of just going out there and getting stuff done, surrounding yourself with people who are doing what you want to do and copying what they're doing. And as they come to terms with the fact that they are now two of those people who other people want to follow around and learn from, but they continue to put themselves in rooms with people who are doing bigger and better things than they are and feeling inspired by that. It's amazing how much they've accomplished in such a short period of time, and a very inspirational story of just showing step by step how to get this done and how to find the people who can help you do it. I know you're going to enjoy this one. So thank you for joining us today for another passive income adventure. Thanks for joining us today, investor. Welcome back. Today we have Ben Bollingbroke and Jordan Jaramillo. They're joining us today from Salt Lake City, where they are recent college graduates who have opted out of the rat race in some surprising ways. And they are working on building their passive income portfolio while they're working pretty hard and working towards some pretty big goals and still taking time to stop along the way and enjoy the fruits of their passive income so that they are not just sacrificing everything today for a future tomorrow. You guys are pretty young. And so I think that it would be pretty tempting to say, hey, we've got plenty of time. We can just keep pushing this and keep living really well below our means until we can get to this big pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. But it's at the same time, you're both pretty young. And so it would be nice to say, hey, we can enjoy a little bit of this along the way. So I'd love to have you both, how about you both introduce yourselves and talk about your background and where you made that pivot from the whole college route to the 9 to 5 instead of doing something very different and more entrepreneurial and more future minded.
So I feel like my background is all over the place. If you looked at my LinkedIn profile, you'll see like a bunch of different activities and a bunch of different things that I've done. I originally started college after I got home from my mission, and I started college with the goal to be a doctor. And then I started shadowing a bunch of different doctors, and I found that I got really queasy around blood. So I figured that wasn't something that I could dedicate my life to because I almost fainted one day when I was shadowing a doctor. I made the change to study biomedical engineering, and I did that because I didn't want to graduate with a degree in biology, and then if I didn't want to go to med school, I didn't have a really good degree to fall back on. But after my first year of school, I applied to a bunch of summer internships, and I had a 4.0, and I really thought that I'd get accepted to one of them, but I didn't get accepted to any of them, and I was really surprised and down on myself. But I had a buddy at the time who he said that he had gone out and done sales the summer previously, and he had made like $75,000. So I was like, heck yeah, I'll go do that. That's amazing money for one summer. So I went out, I started doing door-to-door sales, and just with sales, you naturally fall into more of entrepreneurship and investing. I started listening to a bunch of podcasts, getting into a bunch of audiobooks, and the person on my team at the time had bought a bunch of rental properties, and I just thought that was amazing. I didn't know that I could be 21 years old and own a house. I always thought that I had to be like 35 to be able to do that. So that first summer, I think I made $20,000, and I got home in the fall and I bought a duplex. I spent like $18,000 on this duplex. So I spent pretty much all my money on a duplex, and it was cool because I was looking at renting a room near the university for like $600. And I went from planning to spend $600 to buying a house, renting it all to my buddies, and I was living for free and I was making in excess of $400. So that just blew my mind that like I could do that with real estate. So that's really what got me into it. And over the past few years, I've been buying more properties and just diving more into real estate. And it's really been cool to where I just barely graduated with my degree in biomedical engineering. And I don't feel like I want to work for a paycheck and work for someone else. I feel like my time is better spent working for something that will continually pay me over time and that I can build passive income in.
You hit on some really great points there as far as shadowing doctors, finding somebody who's doing what you want to do and going and copying them. And sometimes the best gift that we get out of that is the fact like, yeah, I don't want to do this. And so that happened to me a lot when I was spending time early on in my real estate business career, where I would go and listen to people speak or meet them and talk to them about what they were doing, maybe buy a course or something like that. And I found a lot of things I didn't want to do until I finally hit on the thing that really made my eyes light up and got me excited. And so shadowing people around and copying them can have great outcomes, no matter if you just copy what they do to success or you copy what they do to realize, yeah, this is the wrong path for me. And that's really important. And a huge purpose of this podcast in general is to put the listener in the same room with many different people with many different stories and see if you can identify the path that is best for you. So that may be the best advice I can give anybody if they're starting down a new path that's a little bit different. And you definitely found that in both the positive and the negative ways. So now, Jordan, I know you have a similar background story, and that's probably, I don't know, how did you two meet? And was that part of the reason that you decided to team up and start taking down real estate deals?
Ben and I met actually in high school when I kicked his butt in wrestling. He went to a separate high school. And no, I'm
He's
totally
lying.
kidding. He beat me. But he is one of those guys that I wrestled. And it's funny. I'm actually really glad you asked that question because when I did wrestle in high school, I was pretty dominant just because I was cutting quite a bit of weight from a higher weight class. I was one of the stronger individuals in my weight class. But Ben just had a motor that I could not slow down. And it's funny because going in from that to now with business, it's the same way. It's like he has a motor that I've just come to accept is not going to slow down. And it's cool. I either get with it or I'm getting left behind. And it's awesome because I'm a dreamer. I like to really dream big and do big and think about all these things. But sometimes I allow the whole like paralysis by analysis to come in play where Ben is I'm just going to go put my head down and go. So we met in high school. He went off and did his sales venture. I did my own sales venture. And after years of just always just being buds after our missions and staying in touch from high school, we just came to that, hey, what if we just started selling together? Could we accomplish something bigger, better? And over the last few years, we started to do that, and it's been great. It's really accelerated a lot of things for us in our lives, especially investing, which is really our long-term goal with real estate. And I think around the same time, shortly after Ben bought his first duplex, my wife and I bought our first house out in Florida, and our intent of buying that house was to flip it. And then we realized that, hey, this house is in a really good Airbnb area. So why don't we just rehab it and get it rented out and then move out, where we ended up moving back west and using it as a rental and as a passive income source. And from that, it's just accelerated to multiple units. But yeah, Ben and I have been in touch really since high school and just like supporting each other from a distance until as of recently we came together and it was like, hey, we can accomplish things a lot faster together.
It definitely helps you scale faster when you have more people. And I get the question, if you just do it yourself and you have 100% of the pie, or you just have two people, you have 50% of the pie. I actually like to work with large groups and just get a sliver of the pie so I can really narrow in on my niche focus and I can do only what I'm really good at, only what I love. And there's some other things I have to do temporarily while we're building out the team or building out the venture. But at the same time, I don't mind getting a sliver of it because I'm only doing a sliver of the work. So how do you two work together? What are the strengths and weaknesses that you both bring in? You mentioned that Ben's more of the go-getter and you're more probably the analytical one in the partnership, but how do you fill in each other's strengths and weaknesses?
Because we're still new, we're both only a few years into real estate. So right now we're really trying to dive into everything. And it's really only been for the past few months that we've discovered what we're both good at. Jordan is really good at analysis. He's able to build big spreadsheets and run a ton of numbers and everything like that. And I feel like I'm really good at the strategy. So we're always trying to find ways that we can get deals that we can market, and then also find ways that we can dispo deals. We've done wholesaling in the past. A lot of my side is just on the sales and then also on the strategy. And then Jordan's the one running the numbers. And we both do a lot of negotiating because we both come from the sales background.
I'd agree 100%. Yeah. It's always fun because we'll work separately, obviously, and then we'll come together in a negotiation. And it's just cool to just see like the rubber meet the road. It just is very streamlined because we do know our lanes and we do try and stay within those lanes. But when it comes to the negotiation table, we can roll off one another very well.
So Jordan, you could just graduated, you said a year ago. What's your educational background?
I got a business degree actually at Weber State. Technically the term is professional sales. It was cool because their program was all online. And so it allowed me to continue to stay out year round selling and like recruiting money. I didn't like the idea of leaving, making money, going back to school, spending money, not making money. Just found a program that would allow me to get a degree because I always knew I was going to be doing something in the entrepreneur space. And so I just was like, you know what? I'm just going to go get the piece of paper. Like it is important, but I just want to do something that will allow me to continue to keep my entrepreneur dreams alive, but also do this. And so honestly, I just found something that was going to get me to be able to do both. And that was just an all online thing. And so I was taking like 18 to 20 credits a semester, just trying to pound it out. And it was awesome. It was a great experience to be able to do that and try and balance work.
That sounds like the same thing that I did, except I was way older. I look at what you have accomplished fresh out of college, what you did during college, and it's what everybody talks about when they say, could you go back and do something differently? It'd be like, I wish I had started sooner. I wish I had house hack, bought a duplex and lived in part of it and rented out the rest of it. You did all of the things that everybody talks about what they regret. And another thing that I always talk about regretting is that I spent the money that I made from my business on stuff like lifestyle stuff, because at the time I wanted to give the kids piano lessons and I wanted to go on a family vacation, and we didn't have enough money coming from just my husband's income to be able to live that lifestyle of really giving our kids a rich childhood. But looking back on it, I thought, wow, I really should have taken that money, gone and bought rentals, and then, like Warren Buffett says, buy the luxuries off the backs of the investments rather than spending it on lifestyle. Because when you've spent it, we have some great experiences, but I'm the kind of person who wants to see how many targets I can shoot with one bullet, basically like doubling up and seeing how much I can stack up. So you have done all of those things that we talk about, we wish we had done. Where did you hear this stuff? How did you figure this out? Did you just stumble into it? Did you read some books? Did you meet some people? Because I don't know if you just happened to stumble across the exact formula that everybody wishes they had done instead, or if you had a mentor or teacher or some books that showed you the way.
A big thing about having the people, like you hear like Ed Milet, Tony Robbins, a lot of these guys talk about the power of proximity. And obviously Ben's one of those individuals, but allowing myself to drain out, and it's hard. I heard a metaphor years ago that I've always stuck to, and it's the old crab pot, right? So we're all crabs in a boiling pot, and whenever we try to escape and leave, sometimes if you actually really look at that, crabs will pull each other back down, and whenever they're trying to escape like a pot of water. And so unfortunately, a lot of people that end up being in that pot are people that are close to us, like family members, friends. And so for me, it was really big to get into the right organizations, the right people, get into the right network of people that allow me to think bigger, think differently. And so between listening to podcasts, reading books, a lot of Bigger Pockets books, a lot of like Ed Milet, Grant Cardone, books that just got like books from people that are doing things that I want to do or wanted to do, getting that content in my brain. Because when I started like engaging myself into that content and then surrounding myself with people that were doing those things, reaching out to people, letting them know, hey, look, I'm fresh. I don't know exactly what I'm doing, but I want to learn. Like, how can I help you? Or what can I do to be of an asset to you? But when I start surrounding myself by that positive content, or I say a positive content board, but the content about around the goal that I want to accomplish, I start thinking that way. I start seeing things differently. I start everything I see. So it's like, it's funny. I always give the analogy. Everybody in the solar industry, that's what Ben and I have focused on selling recently, door to door. Nobody realizes how much solar there is on rooftops until they start looking into solar. And all of a sudden it's on the forefront of their mind and they're like, wow, there is solar on all these homes. It's the same thing with anything, I believe. For me to answer that question would be just getting myself in like that whole power of proximity, the people that are closest to me, the content that I'm engaging in every day, making sure that it was all parallel with what my end goal or parallel with what my standard and goals were wanting to be.
I also want to point out that we're not perfect and we don't have a perfect track record. So about 2 years ago, I bought this really nice Audi and I thought I was really cool and it was like super fun to drive, but it seemed every month there was a problem. And I remember going to a Jiffy Lube because I had a light bulb that burnt out. And normal bulbs are like $5 to $10, but for this Audi, they had to go to the back of the room and get out this special bulb, and it was like $200 for just this light bulb. So it was just costing me a ton of money over time on the upkeep and on the maintenance and everything. And eventually, it got to a point where the electrical system failed, and I just couldn't drive it at all. I couldn't even start it. So I ended up selling it just to this dude that fixes Audis for like way less than I bought it for. And now I drive a Nissan Sentra. So I learned my lesson.
Some of the wealthiest people I know own German car repair shops.
Yeah.
There's a reason that's a great business.
Yeah, I know.
That's a really great insight, because I have met a lot of young people who come on and strong in the entrepreneurial world. And when we first started in the real estate game, there were a lot of young people in there who were flipping houses, wearing the suits, ties being put up in front of the group as well. This kid is doing it. You middle-aged person should be able to do it too. How much smarter are you than this kid? But once we got into commercial real estate, a lot of the people that I met early on in my investing career when I didn't know what I was doing have come back to me and said, hey, can I take you out to lunch? I'd really like to discuss commercial real estate. And they're telling me stories about how they basically blew all the money that they made on their flips because they're taking their friends on vacations or buying an expensive car that's expensive to fix and coming around and say, now I just work part-time at doing something. I do have a college degree, but I really don't want to go into the 9 to 5 and work full-time, because they're entrepreneurial in nature and they want to live life in the fast lane. And I'm thinking to myself, because I just kept my head down and took the slow and steady rate, and I didn't have to worry about keeping the lights on because my partner has a W-2 and he was just able to take care of everything there. That partner that allows you to just focus on what you're good at. That's definitely what my husband and I have going for us, because he just does his thing in the W-2 IT world, and then I can go do my thing in the investing world. And I realized that you can blow a lot of money on a lot of really stupid stuff. And then you can look back around and say, hey, where did it all go? What did I do with it all? And those are now the kids who have realized, wait, that was really dumb. I have a lot of regrets, and are coming back and rebuilding it in a slower and smarter way. And so I'm sure, especially in summer sales, I know I did summer sales back when I was in college, the summer before I met my husband. And it was a transformative experience for me and taught me how to talk to people, how to read people, how to basically communicate in a way and figure out if this solution was right for them. I'm not trying to just push stuff on people who don't need it, just really diving into that sales world in a full-time way and just getting over myself and just knocking doors and make it happen. So I share that experience with you, but at the same time, the top people in our office who were making that 75, 80, we had one guy the year after I worked with him who went on, and I think he made like 200 or maybe almost 300K one summer, and came back and they were buying all sorts of stuff with it and blew a lot of it. And a couple of them bought rental houses with it, like what you did. And I feel like that example of watching them, some buying rental houses and going on to be really successful business owners, real estate developers, because here we are now, what, 30 years later? I can't even believe I just said that out loud. And watching where they've gone and how many of them just blew the money on toys. So you must have seen a lot of that in your line of work as well. And so what would you say to those guys who went down that path of, wow, this is a lot of money and I'm just going to have a lot of fun with it? Because you want to have fun with your money. You want to have fun. You don't want to give away today's life for tomorrow's life. So how do you enjoy it at the same time, not completely blowing it?
I think it's important to have fun. And yes, we work really hard and we do make really good money going door to door and doing sales. So it's important to go on fun vacations and splurge a little bit, but it's not worth it to buy a really expensive car, like really expensive shoes or really expensive clothes. And honestly, I'm at a point where I think it's embarrassing to make $100,000 and spend 80 grand on a car. It just shows that you're like not financially intelligent and that you really don't value what you worked for. Say I made 100 grand in the summer. If I really value that money, like I'm going to take that money and put it to work so that it keeps working for me for the rest of my life. I'm not going to go spend it on just things that won't work for me and that won't make any money in the future.
Yeah, Ben and I have talked a lot about just like how we always joke about like things with each other, whether it's vacation or certain things. We're like, how's that an asset in your life? How is that benefiting you? And it's just a joke, but it is like huge, because like Ben brought up a really good point. If you're making $100,000 and you're spending $80,000 on things that don't return you, it just shows you're responsible to some extent, right? And Grant Cardone has a rule, and I've tweaked it a little bit to make it a little bit more adapt for my family, my lifestyle, but he calls it the 40% rule, where he has his income come in and he takes a percentage of that, puts away for taxes, he pays himself, he pays, and then he has a good percentage set aside for investing. And I think that's really the key, is figuring out a system for yourself, right? You can still enjoy your life without having to spend the majority of your money or none of your money. I think the key to the thing is just developing routine systems in our lives. And Tony Robbins talks a lot about that, how he looks for patterns and he tries to develop patterns. He says the wealthiest people, they recognize patterns and then they learn how to replicate or develop their own patterns. And I think that's a huge thing for us in life. And that's what I think Ben was talking to, is you've got to figure out a system for you. You should be able to enjoy your life now, but you also should be able to put your money in places that allow you to live a lifestyle in any type of economy. And that's the hard part that I think people get caught up in, is they don't develop those systems. And so they just live freely. They don't have a patternized life. And then, and not that it has to be so routine necessarily, but there does have to be a system, in my opinion. But when we have an economical downturn or something like that, if we don't have a system in place, it's super easy for us to be like, oh my gosh, where did the money go? What happened? Why do I have all these payments? And I have no money matching these payments that's coming in. I agree 100% with what Ben was saying. It's super important that you systematize certain aspects in your life, especially like your income.
So it boils down to have a budget, really. Set aside buckets of money. So you have some for enjoying, some for investing, some for daily living expenses, and being able to just keep track of that. And it doesn't even have to be down to the penny on a spreadsheet if you're not that kind of person. I'm not that kind of person. I like to have just a couple of KPIs, or those key performance indicators, that tell me if I'm on the right track or not. And if let's relate this to something medical, Ben. So like the health and fitness industry, you want to get fit, you want to get strong, you want to get healthy. And so you basically have a budget for yourself about how much you can eat. I know roughly what a calories worth of portions look like. I know how many carbs and how many grams of protein and all that, because I've just been doing it long enough. I did have to track it, kind of crazy track it when I was first learning, like, what does a handful of serving look like? But then the same thing in the gym. I know I have to spend a certain number of minutes or hours in the gym each week, what those activities are split up to look like. And after a while, I don't have to religiously watch it anymore, because I can stand on the scale or put on a pair of jeans and I know if I'm being successful or not without having to be a crazy tracker. And that's the same thing we do with our budget. We have a certain percentage set aside so that we can accomplish our goals. So we're not sacrificing tomorrow for today, but at the same time, we're not sacrificing today for tomorrow either. And especially with kids, I think that really helps me to stay focused, because I want to make sure that they're not having their childhood robbed because we are being irresponsible with their tomorrows because we're spending everything today, or vice versa. They have to live like no one else so that later their mom and dad can live like no one else. And that just doesn't feel right to me. So just being able to have a budget just boils down to that simple concept. And we all do that in every aspect of our lives, about being able to balance that. What do you say to those guys who come to you and say, hey, I blew it all. You guys seem to be doing better than I am. Like, help me. Tell me what I should do next. How do I rebuild this?
I think my advice would be to really start investing in yourself. You can't invest in other assets if you don't invest in yourself first. So before I ever bought my first property, I was really I was diving deep into investing and deep into books and podcasts and things like that. And that alone just gave me the confidence to be able to go buy a property and to be able to start being a landlord and renting things out and start making passive income. So it really just starts with yourself. Start learning as much as you can, start building confidence, and start networking with other people. Because if, like in my case, I was around a few individuals who were young and they were buying rentals, and it just opened my eyes to the possibilities that were out there. So I'd say if you're not around people who are doing more than what you're doing, like you really need to change your circle of friends or try to get into bigger groups, because that will automatically bring you up to another level.
I would add to that, consider myself a strong Christian, and I do try to study the word and whatnot. But one of my favorite examples is like when Moses holds up the staff, right? And it was super simple. All the people needed to do was pay attention to the staff. They wouldn't get bit by the snakes. And it's such a like child, simple example. But whether you're religious or you're believe in that stuff or not, the principle remains the same. And I think that would be my advice, is figure out like where your focus needs to be. Like find out what you want to accomplish. And it's hard to take something and or somebody that says, oh man, you're doing better than me, what do I need to do? What do you want to do? It's that common question, the Alice in Wonderland, right, with the Cheshire Cat. So if you don't know where you want to go, it doesn't really matter what route you take. And I think that's like a huge thing. And I feel like Ben mentioned earlier, we definitely have had our fair share of mistakes. We're still making mistakes. But the one thing is, at least I feel like we've established an idea of where we want to be. And that's what kind of helps us not be so down on ourselves when we do make those mistakes. And we look at them as learning experiences. Or when we do move closer, it's like that huge dopamine hit of, oh my gosh, like we're moving closer. But I think the big thing is taking some like personal time to, one, like Ben said, get around the right people. But you're not going to be able to know what people to be around unless you know where you want to go or what you want to do. So I would say taking that personal time to figure out like, hey, like what do I want to accomplish? And even if it's not this huge thing, like even making those like steps in between that, or just one thing that it's, hey, I just know that within the next year, I want to know more about real estate. Like I want to feel confident enough that I could buy a deal. And that's a great like success if you put yourself to it and you start surrounding yourself with people. And believe it or not, if you do that, you'll probably have your first deal before you even intended to do that. But I would just say that the big thing is like, look at the staff, figure out where your focus needs to be.
Excellent, excellent advice. And it starts to echo. Find people doing what you want to be doing, hang out with them, follow, shadow. It's the proximity and the mentorship. And you can find mentors in a book. Some of my best mentors have died years ago, but they left behind their breadcrumbs in a book that really helped to impact my life. And so I find mentors everywhere I go. I've never asked somebody, will you mentor me? Because I decide who mentors me by just following them around, whether they know it or not. Some people are aware and we're more having an interactive mentorship. And some people, like I said, it's just from a book that I read and they've passed away. So find those mentors, get in the same room with them, or at least in the same virtual room with them, and just make it happen. So I'm gonna shift a little bit and ask you for some selfish stuff. Ben, I have a daughter who is in college. She's a senior in engineering school, and she's really starting to look at this opportunity cost of how much time she spent in engineering school and all the money that she's given up by not working. And then Jordan, I've got another daughter who's opted out of college, who wants to have a landlording business, but she doesn't really want to be an entrepreneur, like doing door-to-door sales or anything like that. So she's saying that people who opt out of college aren't going to be successful unless they're an entrepreneur, and she's not making enough money to be able to save up and buy her first house. So Ben, what would you say to my engineering daughter? And then Jordan, what would you say to my daughter who's chosen a more entrepreneurial path but doesn't want to have business where she's doing a huge hustle to make a bunch of money so she can get started? Both of them very frustrated, but they've chosen very different paths.
What I would say to her, you talked about opportunity cost. And for me, I found that I liked commission-based jobs just because there's not a ceiling and I can bet more on myself. I'm just like I'm confident that I can work hard. That really motivated me to get into sales and also to get more into investing. But it was hard graduating school and kind of realizing that this degree that I had spent 4 years on, that I'm probably not going to use it. I know a lot about engineering and biomedical engineering and stuff like that, but I actually did do some job shadows in engineering, and a little known fact, I actually did get a job in engineering, and I had a job for about a week and a half, and I was like, I'm not doing this. I just can't work 8 to 9 hours a day and make 80 grand a year. I just don't feel like that's my full potential. And I had a mentor early on that he was actually like really religious guy, and I really looked up to him. And one day he got a paycheck for someone for 80 grand, and like he's super business minded guy, and he took this paycheck and he just ripped it up and threw it in the trash. And he's like, that means nothing to me because I'm just like making so much money. If you think that you can benefit and influence the world by making 80 grand a year, like, you're wrong. So he just motivated me to go out and build something for myself and make a lot of money, because I believe that money's not a bad thing. It just magnifies more of who you are. So if you're good and if you have good intentions, like, you can really make a big impact on the world by making money, and it allows you to find more opportunities and to do more things. So that's what drives me, and that's what kind of pulled me out of engineering. So I would really try to, like what Jordan was saying, I'd really try to, I would talk with your daughter about just what her motives are and where she wants to go, and to just find people who are where you're at and to do what they're doing. Because I saw a lot of engineers and a lot of PhDs and a lot of scientists who would just work 8 to 10 hours a day, and they weren't super satisfied with their lives, and they didn't really like what they were doing, and they just wanted something else. So that's, in the end, that was what I chose.
Yeah, I chose to just start spending more time with people who thought their lives were awesome, because I know so many people who are doing the thing and pulling the weights, but they didn't think their lives were awesome. And just what was I seeing as a pattern emerge over and over again? Now, there's not one way to do it, but like you said, you'll start to recognize those patterns and be able to recreate those in a custom way that fits you. So that again, really good advice. Just start finding people who are living the life that you want to live, whether it's money, whether it's relationships, it doesn't matter what it is. I find people who think that their life is awesome, and I just start copying what they're doing. I'm their mom. They're like, oh, whatever, mom. Jordan, how about you?
I would say the first thing is she's probably in a better spot than me. And the reason I say that is because the floor is so open for her, and I don't even know if she realizes it. But for me, it was like, I got to go hustle, make all this money. I have a job. Like, I'm going to go use all this money to go buy a bunch of real estate, which is good. I've been blessed. It's been a great opportunity. I've been able to scale pretty healthily. Like, I would consider it a success. I know that there's still a lot more success and wins that are to be had, but I also wish that I could have been in a spot that forced me to network a lot more and start building relationships a lot more. I have a great one with Ben. I have a couple other buddies that do some investing, but I would say my biggest thing is, you don't need to go make all these hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars to go get into landlording or investing for that sake in any sense. I think the big thing that I'd encourage her to do is figure out whether it's people that are like-minded, or figure out how to get her first deal, start establishing somewhat of excitement, credibility. Maybe she can pull on her mom a little bit, see that relationship, see if her mom can soften up and help her get in that first one or whatever it may be, though, and start networking out with people, because it'd be super easy. I look back and I'm like, man, if I had to do it again, I would have loved to have been able to go and talk to all my buddies, sell them on a vision, and say, hey, let's go put what we got together. Let's go get a house hack. We'll all get in it. We can all hang out, be good. And then 3 years from now, let's get out of that house, right? And we'll rent it. We'll take the appreciation in that property, and we'll go and buy another one, and then we'll use that, and then just start building out from there. And there's such power in real estate in general. That's really where our passion is. There's other investments that you can do. You look at Turo, you look at all these different things, but my encouragement to her would be like, find people that you can like get on board with your vision and start having them get excited about the opportunity that she sees. And it doesn't have to be this whole like sales pitch or anything. It's just, hey, look, like, I just see like this is a great opportunity that we could all, like, man, we could have our car payments paid for. And I remember in college, that's a big deal. If I had an extra couple $100 a month, like, that's pretty good. So I think she's in a great spot to be able to really like network with close friends or with other people and really scale up from there.
We're about to hit our adventure where we're going on a long trip round the country, and those two daughters have opted to stay home, one to finish college and the other to basically get her business off the ground. And they are definitely in terrified mode. And so I feel like what we have done to try to help them is just introduce them to all of our friends. Just say, hey, they're going to be here. We're not going to be around. We're not going to be far, but we're not going to be close either. They've got to find their own places to live. It's really time to start adulting. And what I have fallen back on to is networking and just introducing them. And they always feel so refreshed and buoyed up after they've attended a networking event, whether it's online or in person, walking away from that, I can do this. And to me, that is the single most important effect of networking is just being around people who can tell them the things that you just said. And so if for the listener today, this is the type of thing that you're looking for, people that you can ask questions to, people you can ask advice from, whether you want to be an active investor and go run a real estate business or some sort of investing business, or you just want to work at the job that you think makes great money, that brings you some joy and invest your excess. It doesn't matter how you make your money, as long as you are listening to people who can help you figure out how to invest it better, so that, again, you can be living your life right now and then buying your luxuries off the back of your investments. So it's fantastic advice for both of them. And I hope you as a listener will think to yourself, okay, how can I take this advice? What do I relate to? What applies to me? What doesn't apply to me? So thank you for that. I'm going to make them listen to the segment so somebody other than their mom is telling them something.
Nice.
Isn't it great to be able to look back on this right now? You guys are pretty young, just fresh out of college, and you're already able to go give advice to somebody who is a couple years behind you in their same journey. That's just stop for a second and think to yourself, because I know you feel new. I know you feel new in this journey, but just think for a second, wow, look at how far I've come. And I can already start to share my experiences with people who are looking to follow the same path that we followed. Now you're the person that they need to go shadow around.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool experience. I'm trying to take it in because like I said, I don't really feel like that individual that somebody's coming to and being like, hey, teach me every little thing. Like, I do have a few buddies, as Ben does, that reach out and are like, hey, how do you get this, or how do you analyze this, or whatever. But yeah, no, that's a great point. And it sometimes is good I think Ben and I are both somewhat in that same headspace where we don't take a second to stop and smell the roses. It's just head down and let's keep going. So I appreciate you bringing that up, because it is something that's good for us to, I guess, help gain as a springboard or momentum to keep us prodding along. And again, as you can hear, like in the sincerity of our voices, we really don't know it all. And if I could just make one comment onto what you were saying with your daughter, like, you really don't have to have this elegant, like, thing when you talk to people about it. I've literally reached out to people and just been like, hey man, I really started looking into like real estate more. I know you do a little bit of investing. Do you know anybody that would be interested in doing stuff like this, or that could teach me about it? And just by asking that indirect question, I feel like every time, and I don't know why, but they end up being the ones that are like, hey, I'll spend some time with you. Forget whoever you were asking me to introduce you to, I'll show you. Or sometimes they do introduce me to somebody, and there's nothing elegant about it. It's just super genuine and sincere. And I think that would be my last little piece to add to that.
So tell me more about where you two are headed. What passive income adventure dream bucket list item is really motivating you right now?
Me and Jordan have talked a lot about our goals over the past few months, and we both agree that we want to work hard now for the next 5-10 years, really get this dialed down and really get to your spot where we're leaving for a few months to go hike and where we have those opportunities. So for me, it's really, and I know for Jordan too, but it's just building up our passive income. I have a personal goal of making $1 million in a year passively. That's what I want to get to. And I think that would 5 to 10 years, but it's definitely doable. That's where I'm headed for sure.
Same direction I'm headed, but you're way younger. I try not to look back on that and feel my age, but at the same time, it's hard not to, because I see all of the people we could have helped and the adventures we could have had if we had been able to figure this stuff out earlier. So I really hope that people who are listening are seeing that it's possible, because I have some kids the same age as you who are finding a lot of roadblocks and saying it's impossible, today's economy and all of that. But you two are out there proving that things can be the same as they were 50 years ago, different than they are today, whatever you want to call it. But you're really out there just doing it and showing that it's not only possible, but it's not even that hard if you're willing to just align yourself with ways that will reward you in the marketplace. Sales is up there. If you're a good salesperson, you will never, ever not have a job or a great source of income. And so how about you, Jordan? What is driving you to keep the course? What passive income adventures are you planning that make you just want to keep getting up and doing the thing that you do every day?
I think everybody wants to hit the mill a year. I think that for me, so this last year, we bought 16 units this last year, and they were in 2 separate transactions. So we started with 4. We bought a quad in May, and then we bought another 12 later in the year units, so 3 quads. And to answer your question, what keeps me going is I was able to actually get my dad involved on one of those. Now, my dad is a mailman. My mom, she works at the school, And we never went without by any means. I don't want to portray or make it seem like we went without, but we never really had all the extravagant things either, but we did have a good living, and I'm very grateful for that. But I know my dad to this day, he's always, man, there's so much more I could have done. There's so many more things I could have done. And for me, like walking him through the process of, hey, take this money out of your home, let your payment go up a little bit. Let's use that to go buy an investment property. This investment property now yields you what your entire mortgage is almost, like, and doing that, like, being able to get my dad involved into something like that was such a cool experience for me. And I've caught the high, like, so to say, from that. And so now and Ben would agree with this, but we do have some other people that, like, we are in contact with that, like, we want to feel that same excitement with. And it's so cool to help people get there first and experience their first and start doing that. And so in all reality, I mean, we know that we want to be at 50 units by the end of the year. We know that within the next few years, we want to be in the apartment space where we're talking 80, 120 units, and start trying to figure out how to get people involved. Because like I said earlier, there's so many people that do want to, they just don't know how. And it's cool. I've always admired some of these capital funds that they allow people to start getting start with something and start getting return and get their investing career started. And I think Ben and I, we love that approach. We have a little bit of a spin on it where we want to get more involved with those people. But long-term wise, that's what keeps me like excited each day is, man, the scalability and the potential. Like I said, I'm a dreamer. I just see all these huge things of, man, like what if we had all these apartment buildings, right? And all these people that we could like teach and help get invested and keep going and growing. And in return, by doing those things, like it allows us to live a lifestyle of not having to go and put time every day in a 9 to 5 or even just a typical sales job. Like it allows us to go do the hiking trips or go get the ski passes and spend time, or heck, even take people that are in on deals with us out to like certain retreats and things like that. So that is one of those things that does keep me motivated and moving.
Yeah, the key is to figuring out how much you can do that's fun, that's still a business write-off. So I took this 19-year-old daughter to Mexico on a networking retreat for high-income entrepreneurs. And she walked away from that as a changed person and saying, thank you so much for taking me on this trip with you. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, okay, it's a business deduction. So, or the marketing things that I do where I have basically I have a lifestyle design marketing brand. And so when we're doing things that are being marketed, we get to take our kids along for the fun part. And a lot of it, sometimes all of it, is a business write-off for the activities that we're doing to market our lifestyle brand. And so being able to, again, throw one dart and hit a lot of targets has been really important. And that's exactly what you're saying. You get to help people as you're building your own wealth. It just doesn't really get any better than that. And then you think about all the things that those people that you helped are going to do with that wealth that you helped them create. It's like we're an army of philanthropists helping people to go out and help people. And we're all going to have a different cause. Some people are going to want to do charity water, and some people are going to want to start some sort of foundation that helps young people learn business skills earlier. It doesn't matter. But when we're all combining our efforts, because we have the time, we have the mental energy, and we have the resources behind us and the network behind us, we can go out and change the world in much bigger ways than, like what you were saying. You can't really change the world or have an influence if you are making 80 grand a year, still living paycheck to paycheck for the lifestyle that you're not really happy with. It's good enough. It's good enough, and it sucks a lot of people into that trap. It's not great. And so going after great allows you to have a great lifestyle at the same time having a great impact on the world around you.
Yeah, one of the things I was going to say, so one of the guys that I follow is Grant Cardone. I'm sure you know about him, and most of your listeners, imagine that some of them have heard of him. But anyways, he came out with a comment recently that if you don't make $400,000 a year, you're like irresponsible or you're failing or something like that. And I think most people, and initially, like it would be easy to take that as an insult. Grant Cardone comes off insulting. Mm-hmm. I really do appreciate a lot of the, I think, principle that he tries to teach out of it. And to me, like I took that as like man, interesting. If you're not making at least $400,000 a year, you're, so to say, failing in his eyes. And I don't think he was doing it so much in an insulting way, but it's interesting how he like broke down his explanation of it, whatever it may be. But it was like, man, like, what about mom and dad? If mom and dad get sick, what about the kid? If the kid all of a sudden has an injury or an illness or something like that. Oh, and not to mention the church, right? And not to mention the community and all these other things that you can impact and be such an influence for people. Now, granted, he is a huge influence in his community and the people that, believe in him and invest in him. And so I see that not everybody has this huge goal of being this major influencer, but I think the overarching principle of being able to live a lifestyle that you're comfortable with, you're excited, about, but you're also able to like help. You're able to be sustainable in any economy. You're able to be sustainable when illness or things like that happen. And I can definitely relate to that point you were mentioning earlier, because yeah, I think that's a huge thing of just, like you said, the 80,000, you could probably figure out how to live a comfortable life, but could you do more for your family? Could you do more for yourself or whatever? So anyways, that's an interesting point that I wanted to add to.
Yeah, I know for my husband, he felt like wanting anything more than just your basic comfortable lifestyle was greedy. And there was nothing I could say about money or about finances that would not elicit that response. We have enough for our needs. Until I asked him one day, I said, if you had more than enough for your needs, would you be able to do something with that? What would you do with that? And he just started talking about helping people and all the things that he was going to do to reach out and just make other people's lives better. And I said, you could do that if you had more than just what you needed. And his eyes lit up and he realized that it wasn't greedy to want to have financial goals and financial milestones. And it was a huge turning point for him, because then he became much more supportive of he's like, Emma, if we're ever going to be wealthy, it's going to be because of you. And he was very supportive of that path, rather than always trying to talk me out of it because of his feeling that would make him a greedy or shallow person.
I feel like for the past year, I've had this internal battle within myself, like feeling that engineering is like something noble and like something that can really make an impact on the world, which it 100% is. And I felt like real estate wouldn't give me that same feeling that I'm like doing something good in the world and like impacting others. But I've been able to change my mindset just by getting around wealthy people within real estate who are doing so many cool things. Like, I look up to Jimmy Rex, and he's someone who made a ton of money in real estate, and now he's just like focusing on like charities and throwing prom for old people and just like doing so many cool events like that, where he wouldn't have been able to do that if he didn't make his wealth in real estate.
I'm reminded of a story, a friend of mine who was teaching in the medical engineering department at his university, and an anonymous donor came in with $1 million to just say, you know what, I want to change the world and I want you to be able to do the research to do that. Wouldn't that be a huge impact on your field if you could do something like that down the road in the future?
Yeah, and I feel like I'll always be involved in biomedical engineering. I won't be the one who's down in the weeds, like doing all the research, but I definitely in the future want to get to the place where I'm investing in healthcare startups and I'm doing things like that and making donations and really helping to further the innovation in the medical world, for sure.
Yeah, and because of the choices that you've been making over the past couple of years, you will have the freedom and the resources and the network to be able to do that wisely. It's an amazing story. You have an amazing future, and you have a lot to offer and give back to the people who are listening to that story and finding themselves inspired by it. It's impressive. And I know that you are both experiencing a little bit of imposter syndrome right now, but imposter syndrome comes when you're just starting to do something cool. Doesn't mean that you're saying that you're an expert, but you're just starting to do something cool and people start noticing. And that makes you very uncomfortable because it makes you feel like you're putting yourself out there as an expert. But what it means is that you're doing something cool. So thank you for sharing your story with us today. Thank you for sharing the cool things that you're working on, inspiring us, inspiring people who are similar to yourselves in the same spot of life, like my kids, but inspiring me to be able to see, wow, this is something that can happen pretty fast, even if I'm starting a little bit later in life. So thank you for sharing that story. I found it very inspirational, and keep on doing what you're doing and giving back to the community and blessing people with the lessons that you've learned so that they can apply those and turn into great philanthropists and leave those kind of breadcrumbs behind them.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we're super stoked to be on here and be able to share a little bit and also get to know you a little bit more. So this is awesome. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Be sure to reach out to Ben and Jordan on what's the website where they can get a hold of you?
It'd probably be better to find us on our Instagram. If you just go and follow the asset, it's theasset.mindset. That's where you can find us. We try to be pretty active on there. We're starting to get more active on there, but yeah, we'd love to be able to connect with anybody who's willing to share insight and also hear insight.
If you'd like to invest with Ben and Jordan, be sure to check them out. And I'm sure that they would be a great source of collaboration and learning together. So if you have the resources to be able to think, hey, I want to put some money into real estate, Ben and Jordan will definitely guide you along on the path that they're in and help you to figure out how to copy what they've been doing. So thank you so much for coming, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Now, I don't care if you are a recent college graduate, college student like these guys, or if you're an old person like me, you are going to find a lot of inspiration in people who are just out there building their passive income empire and thinking about the ways that they're going to use that passive income to improve their lifestyle, the lifestyle of those around them, and also be able to give back to their communities in huge ways. The thing I liked best about this story is they didn't go out there talking about how easy it was and how anybody could do it or any of that. They're just showing that by taking small steps, taking action every single day, and finding ways that you can be the most valuable in your marketplace, whether it's as an engineer or a salesperson or a real estate entrepreneur, it doesn't matter. Figuring out how to live below your means while setting aside enough to invest is the key to building long-term wealth. Be sure to connect with us after the show. The reason that we do these programs is to connect with you. The network is what makes this go around. So please reach out after the show to me at highrise.group/contact. I've got all my social links there. You can book some time on my calendar, book a one-to-one accountability challenge, or check out the investments that we currently have available. If you need to get in touch with any of the guests that we've interviewed on the show, please reach out and I will make sure that you have directions to their websites, or just check out the show notes to make sure that you are connecting with all of the guests that you listen to on the show. Because like I always say, the network is how we get things done in this business. Thank you for joining us on this passive income adventure, and I can't wait to find out what adventure you're planning.